Well, thank you for creating such a dynamic presentation, Ellis. So without further ado, Ellis Chase, take it over.
Good to see, or God, see is the wrong word. Glad to have you here this afternoon. We've been fooling around in the last few years. We've been fooling around with webinar times. And if you ever want to give us any feedback on what are the best times, we've got it down now to that 7 p.m. is not great, 8 p.m. is. That's what we've been finding out lately. The one I always question is the noon one, particularly since nearly all AMBAs and nearly all alums are working, and that can be problematic at times. So I love to get feedback and write to anybody in our group and let us know what you think about that. If we have any people from overseas, different problem. In my previous incarnation as a retained consultant at another business school where I was for about 15 years before I came to Cornell, we had a program in Hong Kong. Boy, that was tricky. That was really tricky. And simultaneously, we had a partnership with Haas at Berkeley. So think about that. What is the greatest time? But for us, fortunately, we're largely New York State centric. We have the Americas, we have the healthcare program, and we're pretty much time zoned, got a bunch of people on the West Coast. So let us know if that 12 and 8 variety is going to work for you. Today's program is kind of what I would call political. This was built specifically last year for the healthcare program. There were about 7 or 8 people who had some input on what they wanted, and it came into this. It evolved into this particular program, which was one that we designed for the healthcare AMBA program last year on Rhode Island in that spectacular facility where we New York Metro people are going to be joining next year. The point of this is not only how do we get ahead, but what are some of the tools, what are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves politically. So part of this is kind of concrete. Part of this is just pure conceptual politics. You will note the 3 people that I put as exemplars. I've changed this around a few times because I would say that the gentleman in the middle, the late Mr. Jobs, was not the most political human being. As a matter of fact, there are many I know who would label him a sociopath. But he was also brilliant and entrepreneurial. The other 2, different, very, very different. And I think about stuff like this all the time. I think about graphics all the time. I'm thinking about leaning in from the first picture, which is a political skill for sure. And I'm thinking about pure, unadulterated charm and native intelligence. What I mean is like there's an instinctive intelligence. I don't know if anybody watched Oprah after the Michael Jackson 2-part thing on HBO recently, but she was absolutely brilliant. And I don't think she's an expert on the subject, but that's a political skill too, the ability to relate, to charm, and to dazzle with preparation. I like all sorts of political skills here, and these represent the 3. We're going to get into some others. We're going to get a little more concrete. So, whoops, what is that? I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to do that either. I got to press the right things. Agenda. The 3 things we're going to talk about are the most important one is that first one. And here's where you get, this is like I was throwing a lot of stuff at the wall to satisfy the 7 or 8 people from the healthcare program who made the requests for, we want to cover this, we want to cover that. So they wanted us to talk a little bit about social media because that is a political skill. And I think some of the stuff I'm going to tell you is going to be fairly obvious there. But every now and then we've got to repeat the obvious. The part that I inserted here as a political skill, and for those of you who have worked in large corporations over the years, you can't avoid having an active listening course being offered, whether you take it or not, or whether you think much about it, or whether you think it's a dopey subject. I don't think it's a dopey subject. I taught it. I was a consultant at Goldman Sachs for many, many years, pre-IPO. in the pre-Blankfein era. We're talking about Hank Paulson and John Corzine era, where I taught a 4-hour course on active listening and started to realize, wait a second, this is the key to political success. So I had to put that in here. And some of you know it, some of you don't know it. People who sell, biz dev people tend to know a lot about active listening because they got it in their training at some point or another. So those are our 3 major topics. I'm going to ask anybody, I always have to check my cultural references here. That particular Big Brother is Watching You is the original cover of what book that was published in 1949? If somebody would write to Tara in the chat box, I'm just curious. I just want to make sure that people know the book, because if you don't, you didn't go to college, you had to do it. We have somebody.
Kaiser says 1984.
Yes, it is. And
yes, Kaiser, you win.
Look, I don't want to make everybody paranoid by using Big Brother is Watching You, because if you've ever read the very, very brilliant 1984, not a great piece of literature, a great piece of political thought that is quite astonishing and terrifying a book. If you know the book, I don't want you to see that flashing networking is everywhere sign as being the telescreen is in the corner of your room watching every move that you make. When in reality, it's Alexa who is watching every move that you make. And I have great stories about that, because my wife and I can be talking and we may have said the word that sounds something like echo, and all of a sudden she starts to talk. And I know that Bezos is listening. I know it. I'm positive of it. But, you know, we don't need to be paranoid. When I say that networking is everywhere, I mean that in your learning groups, if you're in school, or in your work teams, if you're an alum who's working outside, and I know EMBAs are all working outside also, in any of those contexts, you can't be perceived as the person who shows up for a class or for a team meeting or whatever, bitching and moaning and whining about the boss or the other person on the team or the professor. This is not the perception you want to create, like you really needed me to tell you this, right? Except for the fact that people are not necessarily mindful of, what am I presenting every day? I love to call it, and you'll see a graphic later on that talks about this, I love to talk about it as sunshine, light, and success, which is really the image that you're trying to extend to the world. Am I talking about walking around with a smiling face saying, hi, have a nice day? No, I'm not talking about that, although it would help. You just want to be building relationships constantly. It is the nature of business. So those of you who were in on the very in the weeds networking class that we did on Monday night, you know what I mean when I'm talking about that, and I'm talking about language, and I'm talking about what kind of language, and I'm talking about the perception and the fact that the way people perceive you is critical to your business success. And people who don't understand that building relationships is what business is all about, and they'll say, I'm too busy, I don't want to talk, you know, and all that. They don't get it, and they tend not to do well, with the exception of Mr. Jobs, of course, and a few other exceptions. So I like to present this as our opening template to what is politics. Now, here's the second part of it. This is the second part of the opening. A lot of people walk around with this particular perception. Some of it carry it to a degree that we call a personality disorder. There are 3 or 4 major personality disorders. I have to apologize for this talk. I am married to a psychoanalyst. I've been imbued in this forever. My in-laws were psychoanalysts. You know, I'm surrounded with it. All of our friends, the whole thing. So the disorder that's portrayed here, the personality disorder, is called narcissistic personality disorder, which has been in the news a lot for the last 2.5 years because we keep hearing about a new version of it called toxic narcissistic personality disorder, which is a real variation here. This is a problem politically. We can't be thinking about this. We can't be thinking like, I'm not paying attention to the needs of other people. Now that sounds so vague and so general, but I want to point it out in a different kind of a graphic. We have to be the contemporary popular word is mindful of others. So we're going to be listening to what we used to call, in an outplacement firm I used to work at about 35 years ago, we're going to listen to radio station WIFT, not WIFM. WIFM is what's in it for me. Too many people that I know, that I meet in EMBA, that I meet as alums, are constantly thinking about, well, why don't they call me back? And my answer is, why aren't you the proactive one who's reaching back to them? Or the person who's saying, but I didn't get answers to those postings or to my approach email. Well, that's very me-centric. It's like, think about what they're going through on their end and what can I do to be more proactive? So what's in it for me is out of the question. It's what's in it for them. It's what's in it for the recruiter, either internal or executive, or the person who you are building networks with, or any other person for that matter, or them. What's in it for them? This is the other piece of the template. So the first one was, I'm not the center of the universe. The other is, I have to be constantly thinking about them. All right, so everybody's sitting there going, yeah, fine. Did I need to take my time at noon in the middle of the day to listen to this guy prattling about stuff I know? Well, intellectually, you know it. Do you know it in reality? Do you practice it? Do you think about it incessantly? So one of the things that I like to say is, when you're building these relationships, you do not want to use that word publicly. We use the word in a webinar like this, or in a Saturday presentation in EMBA, or when I'm talking to alums on an individual basis. On Monday night, I used the picture on the far right, and the one that you see from the film Psycho. I asked people if they knew it. I trusted that they did. But over the years, I've added a whole bunch of other horror pictures, people being really upset about and angry. And I'm assuming you recognize lots of these, and some of them are just generic, taking off photo shuttle stock or whatever like that. I hate the word. Everybody should hate the word. I want to network with you sounds like I want to exploit you. It's really, and I said this on Monday night, you're really using euphemisms like, I'm doing a market research. I'm doing due diligence on what my next moves might be, or I'm trying to find out where my skill set fits into a specific arena of my market. Don't use the word networking out there. Use it between us, because then it's shorthand for something. So I want us to be very, very careful. It's a bad political word to use. Don't use it. So it does help to be the extroverted person when we're building relationships. Now, can you see where we're evolving here? Because we're talking about getting ahead. I'm not talking job search here. I'm not talking career transition here. I'm talking about internal to the organization. I'm talking about the relationships that you're building. If you're at school, if you're at work, if you're at life. Yeah, it's great to be a major extrovert who can start an entire brand and a series of television shows based on absolutely nothing, like this woman. That's great. And I do think it helps if you're this raging extrovert. I mean, I've had EMBA students and alums in my career, and I've been working with EMBAs for 17 years, 18 years now, and alums for just as long. And yes, there's the type of person that we all know who can walk down the street and make 80 friends by the end of the block. Boy, we all wish we could be like that. Or pick up a phone and call the CEO cold and get through. That's a gift. It is not necessary. So I need to say this to you all right now. That's why I throw a slide like this up. I don't really believe that it's important to be an extrovert in building the relationships internal to your organizations. I think you can learn how, and we're going to get into some of that how right now. So one last thing about being a natural extrovert. I've got to ask another cultural reference question. I did the exact same thought on Monday night, except I used a picture from Animal House. Does anybody know what this scene is from? Right to Tara. I'm really curious if anybody knows it. Not a one, huh? Not one single person.
Oh, I think we have one. Okay. Someone says, man, Kaiser, where do you get this stuff from? The Great Gatsby.
It is. It's the recent one.
And Alexander Rivera also. Thanks, Alex.
Hey, Alex. Congratulations. This is the reason that I say this is that you don't want to use social occasions to do formal networks at all. What you do want to do, now if you're in a job search context, it's just collecting business cards after a 1-minute conversation. But in work-related social settings, which is what we're talking about today, the point is to just talk, to build relationships, go out of your known circle, find people that you think you want to know in the long run, and let them know what you do and ask them questions about what they do. That's it. We're talking about 5-minute conversations, but what you don't want to do is ask people to do things for you. Hey, could we get together sometime? No, you just get the name or you get a card if you want, and then you can follow up afterwards. So my point is, don't corner people in internal situations and external situations. So some recommendations about the internal networking building. Internal. Now, as I mentioned Monday night, by the way, that if you weren't able to attend and you're interested, that Networking for Life video is up on JConnect, and it's up on the alumni webpage under webinars, strangely enough. So it's been up since the day we did it. This one's going to be up this afternoon at some point. And one of the things I said that night was that in presentation skills, which I teach a lot, you always say, don't read slides to your audience. They know how to read, and that's lethal. It's so boring. So what I always like to do is pick out one or two that I like a lot. I like point 2 under Inside Company. Meet someone new. It's what I just said on the last slide. Go out of your comfort zone. You see a fairly senior person who's standing alone and is probably getting sloshed or whatever. Talk to that person, build a relationship, follow up on it afterward. I'd love to talk with you sometime about what you do, because I'm thinking about where am I going to be in 5 years? I'd love to find out more. We're going to discuss that at length in a minute. Any of these is great suggestions. Frankly, outside the organization, if you're now an alum, which many of us are in the group today, if you are now an alum, you are absolutely wasting all that money you spent going to business school. You're wasting it if you are not active in something alum, or not active in staying in touch with people who were in your class. Frankly, from the previous business school that I went to, I'd ask this of every single person that I met: have you been in touch with people from your cluster? I don't know if the word cluster is used at Cornell, but that meant like one of the classes in any given year. Are you staying? And one person told me once that they had an annual dinner every single year, and 75 people in a cluster. And they said 40 would show, but it wasn't always the same 40. And they would show. And if somebody was having a difficulty career-wise, or they happened to be unemployed, or they were struggling, they would just mention it to the group, and boom, automatic network, because there's going to be somebody in that room who can help. That's only one reason to stay in touch. I just think it's a career maker. And frankly, when I used to do orientations at that other business school that I was affiliated with, we did 5 a year. It was just like at Cornell, you know, you have your Americas, you have your healthcare, you have your Metro New York. We had EMBA, Global Asia. which was London Business School and the University of Hong Kong and the school itself. So just people were nuts. They were traveling all the time to go to school. But I would just look at them at orientations, 5 orientations a year. And I'd look at them and I'd say, look around you. You're paying this humongous amount of money for the people in this room and the X number of thousand people on the alumni database. At Cornell Johnson, it's 19,000 people on the alumni database. These are people you need to think about as your closest, dearest friends, all of them. It is so much easier to build a relationship with a business school alum than it is for the rest of the world, unless they're your personal friends. I'm just telling you, that's why I like to focus hard on alumni club, but I'm really talking about alum. I would say at the orientation, which would get me in trouble every single year because there'd be some dean there and a couple of professors there. And I would say, yeah, you think you're here to take a class with, and I'm giving myself away now, but I'm saying you're taking a class with Joe Stiglitz. Yeah, Nobel Prize winner. He's brilliant. He's great. Da, 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 da. He's fine. But you know what? You can go to Stern. You can go to Cornell. You can go any of the other great business schools, and you're going to get those people, and you can get them anywhere. You can't get each other everywhere. This is what you're here for. You're here for the network. Am I making a big enough cause here? You're getting my message here. That's why I talk about alumni club and why I talk about alums so much, because I think of it as the issue. I will give you another example. I have a private client who was an EMBA at my prior business school. He was in the class of he was in my first class there, 2002, or I can't remember the year. And I asked him when he first came to see me maybe 2 years ago, I said, are you in touch with anybody from your class? And he said, no. I said, have you been to a reunion? No. Have you talked with anybody? No. And I said, well, okay, are you in a 5-year cycle right now? And he said, yes. I said, you've got to be at reunion and I want to see you there because I'm speaking there. By the way, anybody in our virtual room today who is up for reunion this year, I'm going to be speaking there too. It's going to be my first time in Ithaca, speaking on negotiations. And you got to go to reunions. You have to. This is like part of building your network and staying in touch. It is so important to your career. That is, I think, for business school, more than any other academic institution, I think it's the thing. I think it's why the major value you get out of going to business school. I think I've belabored the point a bit. Okay. I believe in sunshine, light, and success, i.e., this is how you present yourself to the world. This is how you present yourself to your class, to the people you work at. Nobody wants to hang with people who are miserable. You might be miserable. I talk with a lot of alums who are miserable in their jobs. That's why they're talking to me. I talk with EMBAs who are saying, what do you think I'm spending $1 gazillion for school for? I need to make a radical change. I'm miserable. But people can't see that. I can see it. Tara can see it. We're fine. You don't have to impress us. We're anybody in the career development team, we're fine. But you don't want the people who could be potential pieces of your network to see that, because they're not going to want to refer you on. So you have to be careful about the image you get across. Now, I threw this in, and I'm going to disappoint a lot of people in the room right now, in our virtual room right now. I know I'm going to. And the reason I'm going to disappoint you is I am not a believer in formal mentoring. I find it kind of silly. I find people talking about mentoring programs kind of silly. And people who come to me and say, I need a mentor, like it should be assigned to you. I actually did a speech once, this is a good 10 years ago, at the Federal Reserve. They had a formal mentoring program. Maybe it's longer than 10 years ago, because Alan Greenspan was running the show then. Did a lot of good for us, didn't he? Anyway, shouldn't be making political comments here. Aside from the fact that getting inside that building takes 45 minutes of security checks, which I thought was hilarious, they had a formal mentoring program, and an hour into my talking about it with them, I realized this is a hunk of crap. It meant nothing. I saw that the senior mentors were resenting being assigned. They didn't want to do it. Mentoring is organic. It is something that develops when you reach out or you build a relationship, maybe with a boss, maybe with a boss's boss. It shouldn't be a formalized process because it becomes artificial. Their resentments evolve. So you're never going to get anything from me about there should be a program, you should have a mentor. Yeah, mentor meaning there's somebody I'd like to talk to occasionally about my career. I'm trying to think of who else had a formal mentoring program. It's not coming to me. The only field that I find mentoring to be absolutely imperative is law firms. In law firms, they call it finding a rabbi. And finding a rabbi means if you do not have somebody to turn to who's, partnership level or very senior level or very senior associate level, you're going to die and you're going to be out in 2 years. And anybody in here who has been an attorney in a law firm, and EMBA classes get a lot of lawyers. There's a good reason for that. We don't need to get into that. That's the only one where I think you really have to work hard at it. But I'm just bringing up the subject because I don't think it's the critical piece of politics that I think some of these other items are. Okay, now, here is a political skill that I like to think of as is my baby, which is one of the number one issues that my private clients, my alum clients, my EMBA clients, people that I've spoken with over all these years have said is that they have crappy communication with their manager. Maybe their manager is a mega introvert who is sitting in the next cubicle and sends emails rather than talk. And I know some of us in our room today have had managers like that who just don't want to talk to you ever. I'm going to tell you something really important that let's take it from when you're getting hired. After you've accepted the offer and you've negotiated it and you're all set to start, I would request a meeting with the manager or meet with the manager the first day and establish a communications pattern. I think it needs to be established. Let's say if the manager is the one who's conducting the negotiations, you can do it as part of negotiations. But what I think is imperative is you set a pattern for how do we communicate, because it'll be so important for me to understand what you need and that we're on the same page all the way through here. So there's never you're thinking I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing and I'm doing things and I'm worried that I'm doing it right or any of that sort of thing. How can we do that? Should we speak for, I know you've said we'll have a regular meeting once a week or once every other week. How about if I have a question in between? Would an email be okay? Or if we're only talking once a month, would you like a 1-paragraph email encapsulation of what I've done this week? And I promise it'll be short. Or can we set up a regular schedule? If I'm writing an email, is it going to be business email, short, concise, big picture, like not every single weed that I've ever done that week? I think that politically, for you to be managing up, because we always like to talk about managing up, managing across, managing down, the managing up should be based on a regular communications pattern. And I think you need to establish it at the beginning. Now, I'm working with somebody right now, a private client, who I'm working with at this moment, who's been working for a boss who doesn't like to talk to anybody who reports to her, which I find amazing, but kind of common. And how do you recover that after you've been there a couple of years? I said, set up a meeting and say, you know what? I think that our organization will do a lot better if you and I can figure out a way to talk to each other on a more regular basis. I know we have our formal meeting every 2 weeks. I'd like it if, and I'm talking 5 minutes at a shot, 10 minutes at a shot, short email at a shot so that we can consistently make sure that we're doing what the other one expects. There's lots of language you can use here, and I love to talk language in these situations. I think this is a critical political skill. And on top of that, I'm going to talk about networking internally. And I call it arm's length networking. You're in a job that you don't like and you don't see a future, or the people above you are not going to budge. They're 5 years younger than you are. And you're saying, no mobility. I don't have a mobility option here. What am I going to do? I can't move, but I would like to stay in the organization. I don't want to have to leave the organization. I like the culture here. I have a lot of friends here. I'm very comfortable here. So I'm going to say arm's length networking. And this is something very different from regular networking in that the way you're going to approach people. Let's say there is a very senior person in a department down the hall, which is, you might be interested in that in the long run. The arm's length is approaching that person by saying this, and this will not get you in difficulty with your current management either, which is part of this. You're going to say, I'm thinking about my long range future here. Now, you may be lying through your teeth and thinking, if I make it through here for 2 more months, it'll be a major success. But you're going to say, I'm thinking, where am I going to be in 5 years? Where am I going to be in 10 years? I like the idea of making a commitment to an organization. So I'm trying to find out what other organizations are doing inside ours. I'm also trying to find out where my skills and experience are marketable. And if they're not, what do I need to learn? And how do I learn it? So I'd love to set up some time to talk with you because I'm thinking about that future. That's the arm's length. It's not now, even though you're hoping it could be now. You're talking about 5 years from now. You're talking about 10 years from now. And then when you get enough information to determine, hey, this is a good idea, then we're going to work on building the relationships further. I'm not going to get into that today. I just wanted to bring up the political skill of not getting yourself into trouble, because let's say you have a bad controlling manager who hates the idea of your moving ever, and that's the definition of a bad manager, and you don't want it to get back to them. Well, the way you do it is the arm's length, is you're talking 5 years. What if your manager finds out? You're saying, I'm just talking about long range, that's all. So I think this skill is critical. Another political skill is to understand that at work, and here I am going with my shrinky surroundings. At work, you're duplicating family patterns. I hope most of you know this by now, or you heard it in leadership classes, or you've heard it in management theory classes, that you're always repeating. For example, you're repeating things. For example, you have immense difficulty with peers and competitiveness with peers. You think, that guy next to me is sucking up big time, and I'm not good at that. I'm not comfortable with it, and I really resent it, and I resent people who get far with that. Well, it doesn't have to necessarily be sucking up. It can be building a relationship and managing up, which is a different thing altogether. Although it may involve a little sucking up a little bit. But when you have an instinctual bad response to that, it usually means a peer issue. It means a sibling issue. It usually revolves around that. Or I've had 1 million people say to me over the years, I can't work for men. I have such difficulty with working for men. And so obviously means usually that it could be a father issue. It could mean some kind of an authoritarian thing from your past. In a class that I've taught for many years on assertiveness, lack of assertiveness skill frequently reflects how you've interacted with authority figures throughout your life, not only parents, but teachers and bosses, and how you respond to them and all of that. So you have to recognize that I am repeating family patterns in some way or another. It's hardwired into me, and you need to avoid it. Now, psychotherapy is the radical thing, because if it's hurting your career and it's damaging your mobility, yeah, then that's a problem where you may need some professional help to get a handle on it. But I like to focus on the behavioral changes when you're looking at yourself and you're saying, yeah, she really does remind me of that aunt I lived with in summers all the way through junior high school and high school, and who I hated and who really, I had a bad chemistry. And working for certain kinds of people makes me think of her. So I have to stop myself, make the behavioral connection in my own head and say, well, you know, the only reason I'm reacting to her like that is because she reminds me of that person. And that's a behavioral change. It's great to have some kind of a psychological insight when you do have difficulties in relationships in the organization. So one of those ways for me is thinking about, it's repeating some kind of a family pattern, something. Okay, the most important slide of the day, by far the most important. It's so important that if you go through all 6 of our webinars, you're going to probably see this 2 more times. And if you show up at, let's say, a Saturday at Roosevelt Island next year, and you see me speak, you'll see this slide again. I know Lori likes to use it also. I want you to look down the slide, because this is going to be a question that you're going to have to let Tara know the answer to. Look down this list. I've compiled this every single year that I've been in career management. I always, start a year off by saying, okay, what is Forbes saying this year? What is Fortune saying, if Fortune still exists? What is the US Bureau of Labor saying? What is this person saying? What are the components? Now, my original one came from Fortune magazine. It was a survey of 100 CEOs. Now, I want you to look at the list. Here's my question. I see we have some questions, so we may stop and do some of those too. But look at the list and tell me what you think is missing from the list, and startlingly missing from the list. There's a kind of skill that is not there. Anybody want to write to Tara and ask her?
Ask me, guys.
Or tell her what's missing. And what do these 10 things have in common that have nothing in common with what's missing? Anyone? Oh, man. This is bad. Anybody?
So the question is, what's missing?
What's missing? What kind of skill is missing? Okay, I'm going to give you a hint, since we don't have an answer yet.
Mm-hmm.
The hint is that these are what are the so-called soft skills. I hate that expression, but these are the so-called soft skills that make for leadership. What's missing here? Not from the soft skills. What is missing? Anyone? Uh-oh, I'm not coming across here. All right, I'm going to answer.
Oh, wait. We got it. Harish says empathy, and Kaiser says technical skills.
Okay, empathy is good, but it is inherent in this list, in many of the attitudes. Kaiser, this is 3. I'm keeping score here. He said tactical.
Winning.
What? Sorry?
Technical skills. Technical skills.
Technical skills. That's the answer. You'll notice there are no hardcore skills on here. Even though I hate the expression soft skills, these soft skills really means interpersonal. And these are interpersonal skills, all of them. And we're missing, sometimes previous experience gets on the list, which always makes me happy, because there's got to be something. There's nothing about like knows the subject or has had 10 years of experience in those technical skills or in that niche product. There's nothing hardcore on this list. So we come to a conclusion, and I got to tell you, out of my 900 years of experience, 900 years, 90 years of experience in career management, It took me till maybe 5 years ago to come to an absolute conclusion that I believe Tara came to a long time before I did, which is these skills are what make for success, not the I'm the smartest person in the room. These skills. Now, sometimes if you're entrepreneurial and the idea is everything, it's going to make you successful, except for when you have the IPO and then the shareholders are going to insist, we need a real CEO here. You can't do that. You have 90 people directly reporting to you. We all know about founder syndrome, right? So these skills are missing in that person. So I don't know which one of these I find the most important. Today, I have chosen to focus on the active listening part, but I also want you to note that presentation skills is the one that makes most people more terrified. Presentation skills is a political skill. It's how you're getting across. But look at all the others. Look at item 7, the business, telephone, email, general etiquette stuff. Email skill. I spent a little time today on email in our social intelligence course, which is coming up. It's either the next one or the one after. We talk a lot about politics and email. A lot about.
Hey, Alice.
Yeah.
We got like a million responses now. It looks like everyone who's listening wrote in to answer your question. I just think it took a moment. Do you want to hear these?
Yes, I do want to hear them.
Okay, awesome. So Orion says moral compass.
That belongs with this list as it was. This is great.
And Jatin Patel says technical skills are all soft skills. Whoop, whoop.
Okay. That's a cool answer. Go ahead.
Right. Levy Harmon says trust in all caps.
Yeah, but Orion, that's another one that belongs in this list. Mm-hmm. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Go ahead.
Orion says people skills. Yes.
That's what all of these are. Yeah.
Yep. Brian says technical skills, which we got that right. Thanks for coming in. Trishul says self-awareness.
Oh, I love that. But again, that's going to be in the soft skills, which we said. But the key thing is we're missing the hardcore stuff. That's what we're missing here.
So Trishul says self-awareness. Manish says execution.
Yes,
and good. James Sang says respect. Yes, I like
belongs
that.
In this list. Same thing. Mm-hmm. It belongs with general etiquette in there. It belongs in active listening there. So you're getting, some of us are adding to the soft skills and some of us are saying, where's the hardcore stuff? Where's my smarts? Where's my experience? Where's, it doesn't have anything to do with it. But one of the things that I tell everybody is being the smartest person in the room is not enough. It never is enough. It's like the tree falling in the woods and no one's around to hear it, so therefore it didn't happen, right? It means that if you're smart, you've got to make sure that everyone knows about it. It doesn't mean you're going to walk around marketing yourself all the time, but it means that you've got to be good at these skills, which get the smart across. This is our critical list, but we've got more. We got more. First impressions. I love this example. The first day of a new situation is critical. Don't just think somebody's going to ask you, so where'd you come from? And you start listing a bunch of companies. You've got to be prepared to pitch yourself, meaning having a 2-minute pitch, which we cover in one of our webinars. It means that you've got to be very careful if you're a new manager not to walk in and say, we've got a lot of changes to make here. That's why I was brought in. That's the worst first impression. One of these days, I'll get my first 100 days class in here at some point and talk about how you don't move into the China shop and break it all right away. So first impression, critical. Now, this is real. I mean, I didn't get it from Peter Griffin, for those of you who know who I'm talking about here, but I did get this email when I was a managing director in an outplacement firm. Isn't that charming? Don't you really want to hire this person? Don't you automatically want to meet this person, talk to this person, hang out with this person? Terrible. This is the person I do want to see. So this is just one email. that I'm showing you. We're going to get to a bunch more. I think career suicide happens more through email than any other means, seriously. Tone gets misinterpreted. Now, this is a terrific email. Look, this person wrote, and look in the second line, I've attended some of the webinars, and so far what I've learned confirms what I've been thinking. Okay, so the person flattered me. This was at the last business school I worked at. And, you know, I don't need to be flattered. I don't care. But this is a person who's trying to build a relationship. That's the point. And so she's asking questions. And she's saying where she's at, and it makes me want to meet her. The person above her, the other email that I just showed you, I really didn't want to meet that person. This is like, wait till you see some of the others when we do in the social intelligence class, because they're all real. These are real. Of course, the names are changed to protect the innocent, but it's like, you're just going to kill yourself with tone. Now we got to talk a little bit about social media, and I'm telling you, most of you know a lot of this stuff, but I need to say some of these. So I'm just going to roll out a bunch of these. I know you've had LinkedIn instructors. I'm hoping to bring somebody in who is somebody who I perceive to be the guru on the subject. So you see what you need to do. That participating groups thing is also a networking thing, and it's a way of building relationships where you don't have any when you're in professional groups. Love that function of LinkedIn. So here are a bunch of items to use in LinkedIn. Obviously, the second bullet, every single person in our virtual room does that. I know it for a fact because I know that everybody obsesses over their LinkedIn function. Okay, look at these numbers. Just take it in. Isn't this scary? Doesn't this scare you? 58% of recruiters eliminate candidates based on what they find online, and that really means LinkedIn most of the time. But I happen to know that I used to be a corporate recruiter at the bank that bears my name many years ago. And we didn't have social media, but if I could ask around, let's say if I was at Chase and I ran technology staffing there. And when I would go raid Citi or raid JP Morgan, which was a different bank then, by the way, I'd go raid them. I could check people out easily. It was very easy to do that. Today, wow, you can really do it. So they can check you out on Facebook. So here's a quiz. You're going to have to talk to Tara again here. Which of these pictures is acceptable on your Facebook page? Oh, God.
You are too funny, Alice.
No, I'm laughing because I'm just looking at the woman with the dog. I don't know why that cracks me up every time. Of course, the other woman passed out next to a toilet is just a charming thing. Is any of these acceptable on your Facebook page? Because I'm now telling you, if you use Facebook, which personally creeps me out, but you know, everybody likes Facebook, so fine, use Facebook. Just tell me, is any of these acceptable or not? No answers? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. I'm not waiting. None of these is acceptable. They're terrible. Now, some people will look at that family one and think that it's acceptable. Really, that makes me want to gag. It's like, I don't want it, I don't believe it, and I don't care about it. Obviously, the others are just awful. Great story. A friend of my daughter's was in the Peace Corps a few years ago. He was in Vanuatu. And it was quite a life-changing experience for him. He had a lot of friends there, and you know, at night when they weren't working, they were on the beach and they were getting stoned out of their minds all the time. And there was a photo that he posted on Facebook of a bunch of them going into the ocean naked. And my daughter saw it, and this was a guy that she knew her entire life from 8 months on, and she was horrified. She's saying, what is he, an idiot? He's going to come back and look for a job. So I texted him, and Benoit too, and said, get rid of that picture. You look really cute, but get rid of the picture. And he did. I mean, and it turns out the career he followed, it would have killed him. It would have absolutely killed him in 20 different ways. So I'm just saying, be careful. That's all. And watch it. A couple of things about social media. This is obvious. I think some of you know these softwares. I had people who had been trashed online from subordinates. There was one in particular, and she learned about how to bury bad material online. Some of these pieces of software cost a fortune, but there are ways of doing it just by writing 1 million blogs and just burying it in the Google progression. So if you have somebody writing terrible things about you online, there are definite ways to get rid of it. This is so obvious. This is even more obvious. This is my whole issue with Facebook. It's like, I don't really care what you had for dinner last night. Never did, never will. Right? This is also important. I think Twitter is not a useful thing for anything. I think it's for people who have anger issues. I use it mostly to tweet out articles and blogs about careers, and that's about it. And those of us may use it for business, but in general, you know, once it's out there forever. You can't take it back. You always hear about people who get into trouble on Twitter and they say they removed it. Well, it's not removed. They just removed the immediate access. This is just a little snarky comment at the end of social media. Now, we're into the subject that I really wanted to talk about. And we're going to go fast here. The issue of listener. I use this picture so much. I use it in conflict resolution. I use it in all sorts of classes because I think it's one of the best photos I have ever seen. I love it so much. They really didn't like each other. Okay, let's go back. I want to look at those. Right? I've done classes on Saturdays for EMBAs where I've seen people in the front row texting while, you know, and it wasn't they were taking notes on my brilliant words, they were texting. And it was like, it was a good thing that I'm not there a lot because I remember people like that forever. The interrupts thing, I'm a bad offender here. A friend of mine and I used to teach, and I mentioned this Monday night, a friend of mine and I used to teach a class on assertiveness at work. And we were saying there's a difference between assertiveness and aggressiveness. Interruptions are aggressive. But we like to laugh together about how New York that is. But it's not. It's rude and it's aggressive, as is finishing sentences. So bad listener. Let's talk good listener. Okay? Many steps. Attending. Attending means just making great eye contact with somebody when they're speaking with you, even if it's in a small group. Now, this is so obvious. It's like, you know, some of you are sitting there thinking, what the hell is he telling us this for? But wait, we're going to ratchet this up. Because then we're getting to encouraging behavior, which is nodding, keeping the eye contact, and going, yeah, good idea, you know, like that. Like letting people know that you're listening and you're not looking at a clock or you're not looking away or not looking at your damn phone. No looking at the phone. Now we get to the most important, and I have 6 items for active listening on here. Confirming, paraphrasing, meaning. If it's a complex thought, you want to make somebody relatively certain that you're with them, that you really hear them. So you'll say, if I understand you correctly, you just said that we should solve the issue by doing this, 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 and that. Am I right? Paraphrasing is a spectacular active listening skill. Let's take it further. We're going to call it reflective listening. Reflective listening, and it's very tricky. You better be with the person and be sure that the person's emotions are really transparent. We don't want you interpreting or being a psychologist. We don't want you having to say, well, let's see, if I'm reading you right, I think you're thinking blah, blah, blah. No, that's out of the question. But if the person is raising their voice, being angry, being annoyed, saying, I am so pissed off about this, well, then all you're going to do is saying, I absolutely get that you're annoyed with this. I get it. You're annoyed that she said blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Am I right? So that makes you even a better listener because you're acknowledging the emotion of something that somebody's saying. What you're really telling somebody is, I hear you, I'm listening to you. Every cliche you want to use there, but I get it. I understand you. Now we're going to get a little sophisticated. This is, I have to tell you, I'm bringing my wife into this again. One day I was doing a new class that was incorporating active listening, and she said, I've never seen you teach. I've never seen you do anything. You've been doing it forever and ever. Teach me this class and show me the slides. I want to see them. And I showed her the active listening slide, and she said, well, why don't you add a psychoanalytic concept to it called listening with the third ear? And I'd heard the phrase, but I didn't quite understand what it meant. Listening with the third ear means that you're paying attention to somebody's body language, and you better be sure if you're going to say something. Like somebody's yawning, that's a clear sign. Somebody's not paying any attention, is looking past you the whole time. Somebody is slumping. Somebody is just looking really down, and it has to be super obvious. But you're not going to say anything. This is too personal. This is different from reflective listening where the person is actually saying something. What you have to be able to do is factor in the body language into what you're saying and what you're doing. So if I'm doing a class and I'm at Palisades, for example, aren't we glad we're leaving that dump? Anyway, by the way, my previous school was there. So I've been going to Palisades now for 17 or 18 years, and I've watched the deterioration. If I see a class of 75 people and I'm noticing that I'm losing everybody, and I can tell, I can read a group, I can look at them. I can't today, I can't tell unless I'm watching the numbers dwindle from 30-something down to 3 during the course of the hour. If I can see that a lot of people are nodding off or they're starting to pay attention to the phones too much, I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to start walking around more. I'm going to go down the aisles. I'm going to ask people questions, get them more engaged, and I'm going to jazz it up. This is what I mean by listening with the third ear. Incorporate what you see into how you're talking. And you always want to ask clarifying questions. You don't understand something? Ask a question. It means you're listening if you're asking a question. You don't want to ask a closed-end question like, do you or do you not like this? Because that's giving no one a chance to actually give you an answer. So it's like, what is your general feeling about that is an open question. We have 6 major means of active listening, and I'm going to tell you, this is a political skill, and this is relationship building. This is the thing. This is the object of everything we've talked about today that can ensure building great internal relationships if you are perceived as a person who listens and connects. So this is what we've talked about today. These 3 general areas. I want to spend a second talking about what's left in our series. We are going to talk about branding on Monday, and that's going to be another noon one. Again, I really want to hear what you think about the times. I'm not going to please everybody, but I just want to know. I want to get a better idea from Cornell than I did at other places I've taught. We're going to talk about.
Someone said, Alice, earlier, and I forgot who it was, that 8 p.m. was one of the times that would work for them because they can put the kids to bed.
Yeah, that's why we changed it. In my whole career, I've done 7s, and it finally dawned on me it's rushing people too much. And we had a big turnout on Monday night at 8 o'clock. So the more I hear, the more I can make decisions about that. Thank you, Tara. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about marketing yourself on Monday. The most important 2 topics in career transition are targeting, i.e., what's your plan A, what's your plan B, and maybe a C. And then how do I market to those targets? And the pitch is the center of everything. Please don't ever call it elevator pitch around me, because that makes it minimizes it. It makes it sound minor and unimportant. We're just going to call it the pitch. We'll talk a little bit about resume, which is 1 slide and 1 Ellis rant about they're not that important, everybody. They're really not. LinkedIn, however, is. So we're going to spend, this is a more concrete topic on Monday. Then we're going to get right back to the sort of stuff we talked about today, social intelligence. And we're going to spend a lot of time with how you introduce yourself. We're going to talk about email. And you're going to find a lot of these hilarious because they're so bad. Talking about email and talking about general social intelligence, which we talked a lot about today. And then on Monday the 15th, wow, on Income Tax Day, how perfect. For some strange reason over the years, this is always the best attended class I teach. No matter what, no matter when, I could do it at 1 a.m. It's still going to be attended. Hey, we're MBAs. This is the subject. So we've added a piece. Since I've come to Cornell, we've added salary reviews into there also. The last one on April 18th of our series is what are all the things you need to know in order to do career transition? So we're focusing on specifics before then. This one is, I'm throwing the kitchen sink at you. You need to have this, you need to know this, you need to know how to do this, the whole view of the whole thing. So this is, if you think I'm talking fast today, wait till you hear that one, because we're getting a lot of stuff. And I am over time, which never happens, and I apologize. I really want to show respect for all of you, and I'm really sorry about that. And I hope I get to hear you all, see you all, whatever, on the next 4. Thank you for coming. Tara, you have anything you want to add?
One thing, Alan says 8 p.m. is great as well. And just thank you, Alice. Really entertaining and inspiring. And just thank you for bringing your gifts to our MDAs, to our students.
Thank you. Alums, don't forget alums.
And alums.
Please pay attention to these resources, okay? We have terrific online resources, and the webinars are all being posted. There are a few recent ones that I've done, just, one-offs that are up there. The behavioral interviewing is up there now too on alumni. I don't know if it's on JConnect yet. It should be. Have a terrific day, everybody, and I'm glad you were able to come. Take care.
Bye, guys.